Hello everyone, welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for joining me and everyone who has been waiting for me and everyone new joining our live stream. It was really nice being with you 3.5 hours yesterday. That was a record. 3.5 hours, ladies and gentlemen. We had to change the topic in the last second and start talking about all of the developments from Iran's attack on Israel. But listen, there's something very dangerous going on. And you know what that dangerous thing is? There's a psychological warfare campaign going on now. There's a massive psychological warfare going on. And that campaign is undermining everything that Iran does. So some people are doubting that anything happened. They'll question everything. It was all fake. It was all coordinated with America. No missiles reached Israel. Nothing happened. And you need to understand why that's happening. And some of the things that I'm going to be talking to you about will elaborate further. That's happening to potentially give Israel an excuse to not retaliate, not have a counterattack against Iran. So what will they do? They will undermine it. Israel started it by saying, we intercepted 99% of the targets. Then they said, we had another report, only 7 landed. Only 7 UAVs and missiles landed. Everything was intercepted. Okay, all right. Then you had the conspiracy people. Oh, they coordinated it with Israel to show, like, you had your attack, we had our attack. So, note that that's what's happening. But it's also related to the US position. So the US position is, I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to participate in attacking, clearly. So Axios, they had an article, right? Biden told Bibi US won't support an Israeli counterattack. Plain and simple. Straight up. No questions asked. Biden won't support Bibi with a counter attack. Let's elaborate further. President Biden told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during a call on Saturday that the US won't support any Israeli counterattack against Iran. A senior White House official told Axios. Okay? Then they continued with their typical, splitting their articles. Why it matters? Biden and his senior advisor are highly concerned an Israeli response to Iran's attack on Israel would lead to a regional war with catastrophic consequences, US officials said. Then they added about the attack, about the details of attack. Some are saying 200, some saying 340, 330, 320. Okay, in the hundreds, to say the least. Biden told Netanyahu, listen to this, and this is the American excuse. Biden told Netanyahu the joint defensive efforts by Israel, the US, and other countries in the region led to the failure of the Iranian attack, according to the White House official. You gotta win, take the win. This is what Biden told Netanyahu, according to that official. He called him on Saturday, you gotta win, take the win. What's the win? That we help you intercept them. nice way to climb down the ladder and run away from retaliation. Not that they should. Yesterday I said they should shut up and contain it because they're the ones who are responsible. But this was also simultaneously with statements from the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. He spoke with Gallant, Yoav Gallant. You know, the same guy who said the Gazan population are human animals, this guy. Imagine speaking with him. How can you speak with him? How can these people be accepted in anything? Someone who calls other people human animals, but he's speaking with him. He spoke with him on Saturday. Austin spoke with Gallant, and he told him that he asked that Israel notifies the US ahead of any response against Iran. Two messages here. What is your message? I'm not helping you. That's number one. Second thing, you don't always notify me, so notify me. So it's a dig. They obviously have to be diplomatic. Notify me against any attack. What does that mean? There is no coordination. There's nothing gonna happen with an attack. Okay? At least when it comes to statements. This is what they're saying. Tell us if you're gonna attack. It means I'm not participating. Israel's in denial, but what Israel's doing with their media is undermining it, undermining it. Obviously, you have the army. Oh, we intercepted it so well. We did so well on the defense measures. Only 7 landed and barely did anything. Nevatim, the strategic airport, basically military airport, where they have the F-35s, by the way, and which they carried the attacks on Syria, on the consulate in Syria from Nevatim. They destroyed it. You're talking about ballistic missiles. They eliminated it. All of them landed. You saw the images yesterday. Probably saw it everywhere today. Everywhere apart from mainstream media. And they continued afterwards. I told Prime Minister Netanyahu that Israel demonstrated a remarkable capacity to defend against and defeat even unprecedented attacks, sending a clear message to its foes that they cannot effectively threaten the security of Israel. So here you have it. You're secure, can't do anything about it. Don't do anything about it. I'm not going to help you do anything about it. Very clear from the US. This is a massive blow to Israel, by the way, because you obviously have the side in Israel saying, I don't care how well we defended this. They declared war on us. There was this guy, Ben Gvir's party on Israel Channel 14. He was saying, I don't care how well we defended it. Iran declared war yesterday. Although Iran played it very cleverly. They said we attacked military bases, nothing protected under the Article 52 of the UN Charter. Whereas our retaliation came against an act that is considered there under Article 52 of the UN Charter. So they're covering themselves legally, and they immediately told the UN, this is how any country that respects international law behaves, unlike Israel, And they told the UN immediately afterwards, we retaliated to an illegal attack against, obviously, a genocidal state in accordance to the ICJ, and consider it done. Consider it done. But with other statements, they said we're done. However, any attack on us from Israel will be met with a fiercer response, double the size, and immediately. You had the IRGC head and the Iranian army, because they have like two armies. You have the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and you have the Iranian army. He continued, Biden, my team will engage with their counterparts across the region and we will stay in close touch with Israel's leaders. There you have it. Listen to the tone. And while we have not seen attacks on our forces or facilities today, we will remain vigilant. We will remain vigilant to all threats and will not hesitate to take all necessary action to protect our people. That's from Joe Biden. That's the first thing that I want to talk to you about. US is not going to participate with Israel in a counterattack against Iran. By the way, contrary to what the US used to say previously. Clearly, things are changing. It's not the same anymore. I wanted to give you a couple of more details about, while we're here, about the attack. So, Iran sent 185 UAVs. They sent Shahed 129 that has a distance of 1,700 kilometers. And they sent Shahed 136 with 2,000 kilometer range, both capable of releasing missiles to divert the Israeli defense systems' attention, basically, to let them target something else. That's why they landed. Contrary to the hyper-pathological liar statements in Israel, including Hagari, one of the biggest liars. 38 cruise missiles in 2 hours, 110 ballistic land-to-land missiles, including Sijil, that has a range of 2,500 kilometers, takes 12 minutes to reach, and Qadr H and Qadr S and Qadr F that have a range of 2,000 kilometers. Now listen to this. Who helped Israel? According to Israel, US, Britain, and France helped them intercept. But the IDF spokesperson, IOF spokesperson, unless you want to take the D for diapers, he said only those countries. He didn't want to put, the Arab states in, in a corner. Bless them, you don't want to give them a bad image. Who participated from the Arab states? Jordan, and they publicly declared it. The Jordanian foreign minister Ayman al-Safadi said, we will intercept anything on our lands above in our airspace, whether Iranian or Israeli. Nice, comparing Iran to Israel. Saudi Arabia and the UAE reported. They didn't confirm directly, reported. But Jordan said we intercept. But Jordan, it wasn't just there, by the way. Listen to what happened with Jordan. There was a report in Al-Quds network, by the way, that they allowed Israeli fighter jets in Jordanian airspace. So if you told me you're going to intercept anything coming from Israel or Iran, then you're a liar. You had Israeli fighter jets in Jordan. Why didn't you intercept them? What are they? Do they not pose a risk to Jordanian people? What, do they not have the capacity to kill you? Why did you just intercept the Iranian missiles? Yet, despite and UAVs, despite that, though, Iran, they still managed to get so many inside, despite all of that, which shows you how successful this campaign was. In terms of Israeli losses, $1 billion in one day reported lost on trying to intercept. Obviously, that's the interception. That's not the actual losses. So if the base in Nevatim had a couple of F-35s and the Iranian missiles blowed them up, talking about a bigger loss. I'm not sure if they moved all of them or what. They said they moved Netanyahu's plane, but they didn't say we moved the F-35s. Now, they used the, what is it called? Iron Dome? They should rename it. I think they should rename it. What is more suitable? The Elastic Dome, maybe? Nothing irony about it. Anyway, the Iron Dome and the Arrow 3, Hetz 3. This is considered to be one of the most advanced in the world, right? Arrow 3. Arrow 3 is considered to be one of the most sophisticated air defense systems in the entire world. It's both exoatmospheric and hypersonic. And how much does it cost? One missile. How much does it cost of Arrow 3? $2 to $3 million. You can say the Elastic Dome anywhere between $50,000 to $100,000. Still a lot of money. This is way more. 2 to 3 million. That's a lot of money. And obviously it depends on the production period, the contracts and stuff. They constantly suck up money from taxpayers to, make the expenses higher. But $1 billion cost Israel just to intercept, apart from all of the loss. Apparently, Israeli airports were full of people fleeing, by the way, yesterday, and they're not publishing the numbers, right? That's in terms of losses for Israel. And obviously, you have Israel still, trying to hide everything, saying, we are building a regional coalition to face Iran. Benny Gantz said, ignoring that the US already told them we're not participating. A coalition for what then? There's already a coalition, a genocide coalition. They helped you. And let's stop there for a second. Let's comment on that interception from Britain, France, and let's put the Arab states aside. Not to say that they're shameful, but let's just focus on Britain, US, and France. So they took your taxpayers' money, your money, to intercept missiles and UAVs headed where? To military bases, by the way, not civilian, of a country that's committing war crimes and a genocide against humanity, confirmed and verified by evidence, by international law, by the UN, by everyone. Everyone was like a sound mind and eyes and ears, really. Confirmed. I released, by the way, a previous video that you can watch after this live stream if you haven't watched it, about updates from the negotiations, because Hamas just published their response one day after the Iranian attack. I'm not sure if they coordinated it but they decided to publish it today. They still stuck to the main positions they considered to be core for the Palestinian people. But they're showing leniency, but the core things, ending the war, letting all aid in, rebuilding Gaza, aid to the north, and the core things are still there. They haven't changed anything. So these were the main bits. Now I'll move to your questions. and comments. If anyone has any questions or comments, you can please post them now. I'll try and get to all of them. I apologize in advance if I'm unable to reach all of them, but I'll do my best. But I'll start seeing your comments and questions and try and address as much as possible. And obviously, good evening and welcome to everyone. Obviously, anyone waiting and anyone participating and coming in now from everywhere. Jameen Brioche, your coverage was amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. I didn't expect to stay for... I slept at 7 a.m. We finished at like, what, 2? And then I couldn't sleep. DJ Lewis, thank you. Sandor is saying, meanwhile, US 13 days plus to figure out if an embassy is an embassy. Exactly. And we said from day one, imagine it was a European embassy. Imagine it was a European embassy. Forget about a European embassy. Imagine it was a EU flat of someone, not an embassy, protected under Geneva, on the convention. Condemn with the highest. They'll open their gobs and start talking. But their lips are zipped when it comes to this genocidal state, breaching every international law under the sun, committing crimes against humanity. Sabia, it's really scary when the war is expanding. I don't know what to do anymore. I can only pray. Well, prayer is very important. And look, there's a big opportunity that the war wouldn't expand, clearly, with what the US is saying. I'm not sure they have a big, intention. Clearly, their statements were not going to participate in a counterattack. Unless Israel, because that's the thing, Israel's run by psychopathic genocidal maniacs who committed what they committed in Gaza. You don't know what they can do. And you're asking me about charity. Charity, I would always advise to check the charity in your own country and make sure they're legit and transparent and legal and everything. Salam Stusi, is Iran attacking now? No, they're not. They said their attack ended yesterday. That was their retaliation. El Karaki, do you think the attacks against Gaza will become even more intense if Israel is not able to respond against Iran? That's an interesting observation, because the Israeli retaliation against the population in Gaza was because of their frustration due to their failure and inability to hit the Palestinian resistance. So they stopped punishing the population. They punish the people because they have no achievement against Hamas. All of this talk about Rafah and the brigades remaining, they're still everywhere in Gaza. What are you talking about? They're resisting you every single day in every single part of Gaza, from the upmost northern part to the most southern part of Gaza, east to west, ambushes, attacks, missiles, Yasin 105, bombs, detonations, everything. So they could, but listen, from the pattern that we're seeing, it looks like they're trying to end it without having a severe impact, because lots of what Israel does is for their own domestic population. Like these images of these vile individuals posting videos, their troops in Gaza, stealing women's underwear or abusing people and running over their bodies and dragging bodies ugly things that they do, hideous, barbaric crimes that they commit in this genocide. It's only to give this population something like, look what we're still stepping on their heads. But when it comes to the Palestinian resistance, they have no achievement whatsoever. So they're slowly but surely climbing down, unless, again, they continue to expand it and lead. Where do they want to lead Israel to? That's the question here. You have so many protests against Benjamin Netanyahu. Where is he going to take them if he does continue? And now the US is giving him a cold shoulder with regards to Iran. J2626 mainstream lies and more lies. Yeah, lie until you believe. The manipulation, all lies. Sean, Iran will hit back harder with hypersonic. They haven't used them yet. See, that's the thing. They haven't used their bigger arsenal. It was limited, and everything was very much calculated and intended and timed. And if Israel does carry out a stupid attack against them, it will be far worse on Israel. Kate, was it Jordan that intercepted, or was it USA military in Jordan? Abdullah begged USA to send the Patriot system, USA military, months ago during Gaza war. They said we. Now obviously, you have the US bases there. They have their alliance with them and agreements. They can consider that as a we. But like I stated, we had other reports that they allowed Israeli Air Force to go to Jordan to intercept the Iranian UAVs and missiles, although their foreign minister said we'll intercept anything in our airspace coming from Iran or Israel. Clearly a lie if you allowed Israeli planes in Jordan. What do they pose less of a risk? They're committing a genocide. Are they less risky to the Jordanian population? And already with their interception, they put their own people at grave risk. You saw massive explosions and fire in Jordan. Didn't you think about that? Wouldn't you have rather that explodes in Israel in a military base? Because Iran said so, and most of them did fall on military bases, strategic places in Israel. Ahmad Naeem Mahmoud, what are your views about Jordan and inaction of other Arab countries from the last 6 months? Shameful. From day one, anyone who witnessed or was about to witness, because you already know what this country is capable of, a genocide, and hasn't done enough to stop it, whether diplomatically or economic pressure or diplomatic pressure, before we talk about military, then they're shameful. More than shameful. Think before you type. Thank you, brother. Great reporting as always, brother, you said. FY saying Iran spent 800 million on the attack. Israel spent 1.2 billion on the defense. Yeah, they definitely spent 1 billion at least on the defense. Iran, I haven't really looked at how much, but that could potentially be even less, maybe. Because don't forget, they produce them. So it's cheaper for you if you produce them, unless you want to calculate the selling cost. El-Karaki, will Jordan see response for allowing the airspace to Israel jets? The only thing that Iran said is that the following. We as Iran respect our neighborly relationship that we have with our neighbors. However, if any of their territories are used for a counterattack against us, then they will be attacked. That's what they said. They didn't say that they will attack anyone who intercepted. And by the way, from reports we had is that Iran notified Turkey of the attack, but they didn't say that they notified the Arab states over which the drones and missiles were passing above from. El-Karaki, how is Jordan allowed to act this way when most of the population is Palestinian? Well, typical, really. You're not talking about a country that represents its people. Jordan is a country that was established by Britain, after the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Their education, everything is based on who they serve. And they have ties with them that are very clear. And there's outrage, obviously, in Jordan. Like the protests in Jordan are some of the most intense at the moment in Arab states, by the way, especially because of the land route that they're giving Israel, whilst Israel is imposing a blockade on Gaza, not allowing anything. Some people surviving on 250 calories a day. Imagine that. Less than a sandwich. Jennifer Ann, Israeli regime foreign ministry. Iran is the greatest threat to regional stability and world order. Lol. Exactly. The greatest threat to regional stability. Says the country attacking 5 different nations constantly. Constant attacks apart from the targeted assassinations of like scientists and stuff, by the way. Because if you don't know, Israel constantly targets scientists, bright minds in all of the Arab world because they don't want them to have a good education, good knowledge. They don't want it. So they assassinate them. El-Karaki, thank you so much for your super, by the way. Thanks, brother. We love you. Said much love back. Let's go to the next one. And Alex Glantz, thank you so much for your super thanks. You said your honest journalism is stellar. Thank you so much. Appreciate your support. Danny, 2022, didn't Iran say they are going to reply to Israel through the resistance? So not directly. Why they have changed idea? They said a couple of things. They said one of the things that they stated is the attack will come by the hands of the men of the resistance. So that doesn't exclude Iran. Then you could have the argument that they tried to trick their enemy, obviously, for them to think that Hezbollah might launch an attack, or Yemen. I thought so too. This was my assumption, that Iran wouldn't engage in a direct attack. But clearly they made their calculations. They immediately used the Article 52 of the UN Charter, saying it's a legitimate attack, our territory was attacked. And to them, this is the analysis that's coming out now, is to Iran, when you attack our consulate or embassy, you attacked our territory. Therefore, the response must be from our territory as Iran. This was their argument, and they backed it by the talk about the UN Charter and the fact that these are protected. So it's therefore 100% legit. Unlike what the US, what the European countries do, what Israel constantly does, in complete disregard of international law. The United States, it doesn't, it's not bound by the ICJ. They don't recognize their jurisdiction. They're bound by some of their conventions. They're signed to about 80 of their conventions, but they don't recognize their jurisdiction. Neither does Israel, but Israel is signed to the Genocide Convention. That's why South Africa was able to take a case against them. So clearly Iran had that calculation, and therefore they said, we have to do it from our own territory. Kate, did Russia send their warhead in Syria preparing an attack on Dimona, Israel, if Israel attacked Iran nuclear site? I'm not sure that Russia will retaliate on behalf of Iran, but what almost everyone really knows is that Russia and China will most likely, be part of Iran's side, be on Iran's side if there's a coalition against Iran, because that's too much for them. You're stepping into bigger territories. Abdul Haq question, excuse me for being skeptical, but doesn't this show Iran really does have the capacity and capability to stop this genocide? So stopping the genocide is not their priority. Very valid point. And you're probably right. It's probably not their priority to stop their genocide. And this attack was officially against, in retaliation to their consulate or embassy. Now, again, them and anyone else enacting or not showing, actions to stop this genocide, they have their own excuses. However, the only thing when it comes to Iran is their support to the resistance. Because obviously you have the judicial implications, diplomatic implications, military implications, not giving them excuses, obviously. Because in my opinion, anyone that could have supported the Palestinians in terms of ending the genocide, including big things, they should have acted. But they have their own calculations that we don't obviously always agree with. That's from Abdul Haq. And Jalani Ghani, how many Israeli soldiers were killed in the attack? Israel didn't report that any were killed, but they showed a woman with a child that, they didn't like, but they obviously, want to show, like, that's what was, that's the injured person, child too. attract sympathy. But when it comes to the 14,000 Palestinian children, including babies and infants and newborns, that's collateral damage to them. And obviously they all do that for propaganda. To try and achieve some sort of sympathy, really. Wajid Akhtar Ansari, there is no casualty recorded in Israel while Iran has rained missiles on Israel. What kind of attack is it? That if you believe what Israel is saying, the same argument can be applied on the Palestinian resistance. What Israel is admitting 1,000 soldiers are dead so far. It's a blatant lie. Let's not forget that they're hyper-pathological liars. Everything they say, you take it not with a pinch of salt, but with 5 bowls of Himalayan salt and 2 bowls of extra spicy pepper and chilies. They're hyper-pathological liars, these people. So we're not going to believe them, are we? However, even if they didn't, again, this is another argument here, apart from the fact that they lie. But this is another argument. Because Israel, obviously, if they knew that they're targeting the air, they'll empty them. But for argument's sake, no one died. You need to think about the bigger picture. What's the implications? Do you know what that does psychologically to the whole country? That we can be under this attack or a taste of a bigger attack from Iran like that? And what that means? People are already fleeing from Hamas. Over 3.5 million people left. That's a conservative estimation, by the way, because of this. After the 7th of October. Some people who were on holiday before also didn't come back, about 300,000. But I'm giving you, because they stopped giving numbers. They stopped providing statistics. So you're talking about a very massive hit that had a very big effect on Israel, regardless of how many soldiers were killed or were not killed. Dan Morgan, has Bibi announced the retaliation attack? He said that we will attack. Bibi said that. How, where, when? That really depends on them, and the days will reveal. And I think Jon Snow had a very valid comment here about for Wajid's comment. There is casualties, but Israel is not accepting to not lose people's morale over there. Do you know? People start to flee from Israel after this step. Very, very, very on point. That's also a very valid point to that question raised by Wajid. Dr. Bumper, interesting, because I'm going to be releasing a video later on about this. Just sharing my views, really, an observation. You're saying, Mahmoud Odi, the Shia-Sunni narrative is non-existent at the moment? You're asking me. Is this the underlying narrative within other Arab countries? That's the reason why some Arabs and some Muslims always doubt what Iran says. Why? Because to them, Iran is Shia. And I will elaborate further on the argument and how un-Islamic it is even to have sects in Islam, right? From a Quranic perspective, from an Islamic perspective. But I'm going to have a separate video for that afterwards. However, what I'll elaborate here for you is they look at it from a sectarian perspective. They look at it So if he's not a follower of my sect, he can't do anything, right? And they obviously have the argument of them in Syria, which is something that I will also elaborate on in my coming video that you can watch after this. And regardless of whether we agree or not, and both people do wrong things, but this stems, there's a sectarian perspective, there's a racist perspective. Some of them will tell you the Persians. There is racism in the Arab world, in some parts, obviously. And there's the sectarian people who will tell you, oh no, they're Shia or Sunni, we're not going to support anything they do, they're liars, they do it as a facade, and it's all an act. And then you have the people with an inferiority complex. So if someone does something better than you, if someone is more brave than you, and if you're a coward, you're taken aback a little bit. You're intrigued. You're, overwhelmed by what you're seeing. Oh. So if I actually say, oh, hold on, what they've done is right, then what are you telling me about yourself? That you're a coward. That's what you're saying. So it could be a combination of things. And some people are pushing for the sectarian narrative, not knowing who they serve. Who do you serve by pushing a sectarian narrative? We're trying to get religion out of the narrative, not to say that the religion doesn't have a say, or that religion isn't a motivator, or whatever. But you're talking about a straightforward things of human beings suffering. Well, can't human beings agree on the fact that you can't be silent when other people suffer? Even if it's not people of your own race? Well, won't we show sympathy with other people if they were being massacred? Right? They're saying statements, right? Again, what they're saying is they're always bringing the anti-Semitic narrative when it comes to Israel, right? They claim that they are protecting the Jewish people, although they're not, because they're completely disregarding the Jewish people that are not on Israel's side. As a matter of fact, they deny their existence in many cases. It's as if they don't exist. And I speak with many of my Jewish brothers and sisters, and they'll say the same. It's as if we don't exist, they say. You won't see us on mainstream media to that level, to that extent. But they're selling it to support a violent racist ideology, which is Zionism, speaking on behalf, falsely, of Judaism for political purposes, political and financial purposes, and neo-colonial purposes. So the whole narrative is very ignorant and very malicious, and many times, now, they've been having a serious campaign to push for these people, like ISIS that they created. Sectarianism, racism, ugliness. They created them. Why? Because they want people to have this narrative, to show you, oh, look, this is Islam. Look at them. And then they'll divide the Muslims between them. Creating a Sunni alliance against the Shias. They will tell you, what do you mean Sunni alliance against the Shia? All of us are people at the end of the day. We'll agree on certain things. We won't agree on certain things, which leads me to the previous point, by the way, about... the same thing, really. Do I have to agree with everything that Iran does in general to say that what they're doing in this case is right? Do I have to? No, I don't have to. Do we all have to agree on everything here? No, of course not. Why should we? It's good not to. We can brainstorm. You'll tell me what you think. I'll tell you what I think. We can reach something better. Hell, don't take what you think too seriously. You shouldn't take everything you believe in too seriously. Apart from core, let's say, spiritual truths or what have you. But even that, it's always good to revisit some of your beliefs, because some of them might not be really substantiated, might not be correct. But if you're talking about a country, do you think everyone in that country agrees? Do you think everyone in that government agrees? Or do you agree with your brother or sister or mother or father on everything? No, you don't. But when someone does something right, they did something right. Simple. Do we have to be that short-sighted? Do we have to live in a bubble? Why? Open your eyes. Jeez. But they want you to. Some of these powers want you to be short-sighted, fearful of the other, suspicious of everything. No, not at all. We should all be open-minded, think, criticize, right? But when something is right, something is right. Plus, there's priority. Now, what's the priority? There's a genocide. Anyone doing anything to expose it, to do something against it, to try and prevent it, good, excellent. Is it time now to start saying? And one of the American thinkers in the late 20th century, he said the 21st century will be the century of war between Sunnis and Shias. And they sparked it in Iraq. Started to support groups here, groups there, sectarian people here, sectarian people there. Typical Sun Tzu method, read the art of war. That's taught in military academies, and they think about it strategically. Divide and rule. Let them eat each other. They'll do the job for you. But some people are so ignorant and short-sighted that they don't realize what's happening. They don't just look at it from their own beliefs perspective. Oh, no, I believe that. They believe something else. Leave me alone. Exceptionally short-sighted and ignorant. Al-Qaeda, many Israelis units were hit. The Rafah invasion force was also hit multiple times. Israel has nothing to respond with. It is now confirmed they are out of ammunition too. Look, they're not totally out of ammunition, but they started losing ammunition from the beginning. They used the equivalent of 3 atomic bombs on Gaza so far. A very dense, highly populated area, killing everyone. But that's something that they don't speak about a lot. Number one, the ammunition. Number two, the capability. So it's not a capable army. If you fail to destroy Hamas or stop their acts against you, then you're an incapable, failed army. You're taking a beating from people with flip-flops in Gaza that pop out of nowhere. And the numbers. So there's the number of casualties, they're liars, wounded who can never participate in combat again, conscription, that's why they're trying to force the Haredi community and met with fierce resistance again. All of that. And obviously, look, Netanyahu, seriously, he knows what's happening, but he's thinking about himself too. So he'll do anything to prolong his position. He knows when it's done, he's done. He was very happy yesterday because of the prospect of war escalating and global countries participating, going to coalition against Iran means more time in power. He was happy when he made his speech yesterday. But now he got the cold shoulder from Biden. Matthew 152, do you think that if Israel launched rockets at Iran, Russians will intercept the same way, the US, UK, but from Syria? They already intercept from Syria. They have in many cases intercepted from Syria, but they're under Russian control. So not always. Some of the batteries in Syria are operated by Russia. But that's definitely something that is possible because they have a strategic alliance really with Iran, like it or not. So that's definitely a possibility. Assuming that the attack will go through Syria, they'll probably go over Jordan. They allowed them to go into their airspace now. Get Black with me. How can Israel be negotiating with Hamas and eradicating them at the same time? Where's the logic in this? There is no logic in Israel altogether. There is no logic in it as a state. It's incompatible with humanity, this violent, supremacist, genocidal ideology. So go figure. What's the... Like, if anyone had any sense, you negotiate with your enemies, not with your friends. If you really wanted to reach a solution, sit down face to face with Hamas. What do you want? What do you want? What do we want? How can we deal with this? Right? But it's also, don't forget, normal for countries with such bad fighting going on for them not to speak directly but have mediators. That's why they have mediators. Although if they were genuine, you sit down with the people you don't like to try and reach a deal. FP Salams Mahmoud, what did you think of the condemnation of Iran by the British Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary? Sounded like the ultimate hypocrites with double standards to me. You've answered the question. Ultimate hypocrites with double standards. I'll go further. They're genocidal, vile, evil, and corrupt. And they're Zionist little puppets that mean nothing. They're just fronts. They're servants to the people behind them, to their donors, to the people who pay them. They mean nothing. They mean nothing. They're just there as puppets. You know, you talk about democracy. It's the biggest facade. You have elected dictatorships. Everyone is unelected here in Britain. What? Was Rishi Sunak elected? They appoint each other. Win an election and they'll start moving from here to there. But the people voted for that person at that time. And they use democracy. Genuine, true democracy. Look at Athenian democracy. People were consulted all the time when it comes to big things, big decisions. Go back to the Iraq war. Unprecedented numbers protesting. Hundreds of thousands in the US, in the UK against the war. We don't want this war. We don't want it. We don't want it. The population of Britain, the population of America, everyone going out telling you we don't want to go. Although they were more easily manipulated at the time. What did they do? Disregard all of them. Went ahead with it. Proved to be all a lie, weapons of mass destruction, and they get away with it. That's what happens. Is that democracy? It's not. Salam Stussy, what Iran say about Jordan? Yeah, like I said, the threat, if they enable Israel to retaliate through them, they will be attacked. That was a message to everyone around them. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Ashamed of my Egyptian side, proud of my Lebanese side, embarrassed to be an Arab right now. Look, I'll tell you one thing. I understand the sentiment, But there is no reason to be embarrassed of anything if you're on the right side. Doesn't matter where you are or what. Like, listen, look at the Palestinians. Are they all same thing? Some of them are working for Israel, supporting Israel. Some of them. So it doesn't matter about... I think the most important thing to be morally a moral individual and morally consistent and do what's right. And then regardless of who you are or who are your parents, who cares? Plus, if you talk about, like, look at the Egyptian people as well. Many people supporting Palestine and the resistance. Again, like many other nations, everywhere really, not being representative, not being represented by their leaders. Jacques Larouche, Mahmoud, thank you for being the voice of truth, reason, justice, and thank you for your kind words and for your support. Shazad, thank you so much, and everyone else for your kind comments. Okay, let's go to the next one. So I'm trying not to miss some of the main things. Shazad is also saying, Brother Mahmoud, what do you think will happen now that the Iranian response is over, but still fresh in everyone's minds? Well, they wanted to send a message. That's the main thing. That message was for Israel primarily. Clearly, the US gets the message. And also their neighbors, in case you're going to allow this genocidal state to attack us. The biggest impact of Iran and its action yesterday was in Israel. Israeli politicians, leadership, and population. They're selling it as the safe haven for the Jewish people. Again, a false notion to legitimize and sell their neo-colonialist, racist, violent, and genocidal supremacist ideology. Clearly, it's not. It's the worst place for anyone really to live in now, with the church. Mahmoud, I love your tone, and you talk calm and slow, easy to listen to. Thank you so much. Zeus, is it true that Qatar, Kuwait, and Turkey doesn't allow their airspace to be used by Israel and US aircrafts? It's true that they did not allow Israel. I'm not sure if it's US, unless the US is going to attack Iran, because they already have US bases, obviously. Qatar has one of the biggest aircraft bases, if not the biggest one in the world for the US. But clearly they told them, we won't allow you to attack through... Similar to Turkey did that with the Iraq war, by the way. At the time, they told them you can't attack Iraq through Turkey. So Qatar and Kuwait, 100%, that was declared. Turkey, most likely as well. El Karaki, thanks, brother. Love you. Much love back. Thank you so much for your super thanks. Okay, where did that disappear? David Yee, thank you. And Sabia, thank you so much for your supers. I really appreciate them. Okay, let's go. Sorry, it went back down. Let me go back up again. Natalie, hate helps the colonialists. Yeah, absolutely. That's why they constantly push for it. Even internally, you will see these racist voices. Instead of working on social cohesion, on openness, they spread hate and propaganda against other people. They use people as scapegoats whenever suitable for them. Al-Qaeda, you're talking about the Knesset damage. There were no landings on the Knesset as far as I know. The images that you saw were missiles behind it, but they took an image of it similar to the images and videos of missiles on top of Al-Aqsa, but they were obviously far away. But they took it as an image to show that, look, this is the Knesset and there are missiles over there. Okay, let's go to the next one. Syria needs to upgrade their air defense systems from Nawal. Yeah, and they have some sophisticated systems, but they're run by Russia. Some of their air defense systems, even though they're old, they're active against Israel, but not always. Like if the Palestinians or the Lebanese resistance, if they had air defense systems, it would have been a completely different story. A completely different story, but it's such a sensitive thing to get hold of, because it's a strategic weapon. It changes things. Strategic weapon. You know that, okay, if they have that, I'm unable to function there. And Israel, you know, they want the liberty of attacking everyone, defending themselves. Right? Windy Melly, I'm a Catholic and I support the Palestinians and Iran's right to self-defense. Absolutely. Any decent human being would support any other human being's right to self-defense against genocide, against cruelty. Sabi is also asking, why is Egypt taking so much money from the Palestinian people who are being granted visas to leave? That's very interesting. Okay, there were many charities that reported, several, and some of them didn't want to be named in fear of repercussions, that some people from within the Egyptian forces are charging a hell of a lot of money, $5,000-$10,000 to get out, which is awful. Whether it's something done at that level or at a higher level, both ways are really bad, to try and profiteer on a human catastrophe. It's awful. M. Khan Strait of Hormuz close to Israeli ships in and out. It looks like it by that, after they took that Israeli ship. They haven't released yet. Shazad is also saying, Assalamu alaikum Mahmoud, did Biden actually say that he's not looking to escalate from the USA side? Wa alaikum salam. Yes, so that's what he's saying. Is the US will not participate if Israel retaliates, and the Secretary of Defense told his counterpart in Israel, Yoav Gallant, if you will attack, if you want to attack Iran, notify us. That's saying, I'm not participating. Just tell me, because you usually don't. And Biden made it very clear in his call to Netanyahu. That's why Israel's trying to kind of contain it as much as possible. In Israeli media, they're saying, oh, the defense was great. The defense was amazing. Hardly anything landed after it was hell yesterday. You've seen things. Well, what happened yesterday? Oh, nothing happened. 99% of the flies they intercepted. 99% of the flies. A retro revival. Thank you so much. And Zeus. Hi, Tillis. Thank you for your membership. Israel didn't get very damaged and no fatalities from Iran's side. I don't think it punished or deterred Israel. Maybe Iran is waiting for Israel to react. I would slightly disagree with this notion, because obviously if there were fatalities, especially from the army, because Iran targeted Israeli army bases and strategic locations, Israel wouldn't declare it because they wouldn't want to spread more panic. Everyone was panicking yesterday, shouting when they see missiles a kilometer away. It did punish and it did deter Israel because it's, number one, unprecedented. It's a historic event. It's the biggest UAV attack in history. And Iran set new rules to the game. Iran set new rules to the game with Israel. You can't go do whatever you want without repercussions. That's what Iran sent. So it did make an impact. But again, like I said in the beginning, there's a big psychological campaign to undermine what they've done so that they don't retaliate. Because if they say, oh, it was big, it was great, it was that, they have to retaliate. That's why they make smaller things bigger, right? If they want to retaliate, or they'll have a false flag and tell you, oh, I have to retaliate. But when it's actually something big, they'll tell, no, it didn't do anything. Oh, it was coordinated, right? So it did make a big impact in Israel. Retro Revival, Mohammed, do you think the USA will allow economic implications if Israel reply to Iran? Look, they already have this economic thing with them, but they're also in other negotiations with Iran regarding their nuclear program, and they just released 8 billion not long ago that they stole. These people act like a mafia. What they do with Iran, they hold money that they owe them from oil purchases and stuff, and they don't pay them because they don't want to. What kind of a mafia world do we live in? Same thing with Russia. Even if it's private people connected somehow to the government, seize their assets. What the hell? What kind of a world do we live in? And they can get away with it. Oh, because they'll tell you they're bad. But people who committed genocide are roaming freely. Okay. Olga Deweger. Should Hamas not demand the right to drill the gas, oil in the coast, break down the wall, and the right to have its own army? Well, the right to have its own army, they're not waiting for anyone. They had their own army because they're entitled to. They're people under occupation. They have a right to self-defense against a violent occupier who committed genocide and commits genocide against them. And demand the right to drill gas in the coast. I think that's that subject will probably pop up if you actually have some sort of a state, if there's something like temporary with a two-state, even though I don't think that's going to happen. Break down the wall, they totally have a right to. They did break it sometimes. But again, all of that can be solved very easily by simply implementing equality between the river to the sea, between Israelis and Palestinians, and have a very clear democracy that we promote. That solution is easy. That's why I wrote a book about it. Like many people also spoke about it before me, but what I focused on is how practical it can be, with some steps that can be added or amended or whatever. Very straightforward. But they don't want it. Why? Because it's a neo-colonial entity planted there strategically to divide and spread hate and division, to serve neo-colonial powers, people who profiteer from the blood of innocent people, and divide the Arab and Muslim world, split Africa from Asia, all of these things. Gaza, okay, if nothing happened, then why are they not showing their bases on live TV today? Interesting. Go show me Nevatim, right? Only a few missiles landed in Nevatim, but the airspace is still functional, and we had launches today. That's according to the IOF spokesperson. That woman, don't underestimate the Israeli hubris, or should I say chutzpah. Yes, totally. Terry is asking me, will Israel retaliate? Thank you for your membership, Terry. Seeing as its biggest enabler, the US, is saying, I will not participate in a counterattack, I don't see why they should. You've killed so many senior Iranian figures previously. You took it a step too far this time. You're an aggressor. And they retaliated. And to you, you're saying you contained it and you had successful defense in that. So why should you? Plus, you're leaving yourself secluded if the US is not with you. Or who's going to help you? Germany? The UK? They told you, France and Britain and the US, they helped you intercept some of these UAVs and drones and missiles. And they told you, we supported you. They're in a tough situation. Israel is in a very bad situation. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's their situation. If they retaliate, they're damned. If they don't, they're damned. It's definitely an option. I don't see anything reasonable for them coming out of it, but potentially even worse things. But hey, that's assuming there's someone reasonable there. Mahmoud Odi, how seriously can we take Iran's claims that there were 44 IDF casualties and injuries following their attacks yesterday? I personally haven't heard that. Personally, if Iran said it, it would be interesting to know what they established that on. Potentially, if some of their drones or missiles had cameras on them, and they do have some of them, they send some to Hezbollah. But I personally haven't heard it, and if they do and they said it, they potentially don't want to release images to not give further information, maybe. If that's the case, obviously, because I personally haven't seen that. Terry's also asking, did Israel Channel 13 or 14 report that there were IDF casualties from the strikes? They said none of them did. And neither did the IDF spokesperson. No casualties whatsoever. And they said we intercepted 99% of all of the attack, and only 7 landed in Israel. That's what happened. Sarah Love 771, Hebrew Media, Nevatim military airport completely destroyed. Is that true, Mahmoud? Well, the IDF spokesperson said there was limited damage. Now, note, when they say limited damage, that could have been completely destroyed. We saw the strikes landing on the Nevatim from a ballistic missiles, guided missiles. It could have been completely destroyed, but they wouldn't say. If some of the Israeli media said so, then they're confirming. But from the level of how many ballistic missiles were down there. I wouldn't be surprised if it got destroyed, and some of the jets that were there were destroyed, including the F-35s. It cost billions. Razwana Chudri, will the Iran attack have any negative impact on the Gaza genocide? I don't think so. I don't think so, personally. As a matter of fact, it could potentially push Israel to reach a solution quicker, because they know there's a lot of danger now. And seeing as Iran entered the battle now, their calculations would include Iran when it comes to genocide. So to them, to Israel, so listen to this. If Iran's argument, because everything was calculated, if Iran's argument, we did this in accordance to international law, because our territory was attacked and considered done deal, we retaliated to that attack on military basis, not protected by international law, so that they can't give Israel any legal standing to attack them. Let's say they did that deliberately. They did that deliberately, and it's calculated, man. Well, there are other arguments. There are other legal arguments. There are clauses in international law and in the UN for preemptive strikes. If a country is committing crimes and genocide and attacking left, right, and center, you're allowed to have a counter-strike. Hell, this is what the US and many Western countries have been doing all across the world as an excuse to kill people and steal their resources. So Israel must be thinking, okay, if they took that now as an excuse, could they use the genocide as an excuse, seeing as the ICJ is admitting that there's genocide? That's number one. Number two, could they use that clause that deals with preemptive strikes as another retaliation and then cover themselves legally, for example? They are calculating all of these things in Israel. They're consuming what happened yesterday. So I don't think it's in their best interest. I don't think it will necessarily have a negative impact. Look, Israel's been doing a genocide with or without Iran. And if they wanted to continue, they will continue, really. But I personally don't think they will, personally. ABCD, what repercussions for Jordan's Abdullah, if any, considering his airspace was allowed to counter the Iranian drones and missiles? Obviously, Iran will attack him. This is what Iran said. If any attack goes from territories of our neighbors, although we have a good respecting our neighborly connections and what have you, then we will be attacking them from their source. So they know that very well. Jihad al-Aidi, can we discuss the attack on women and children going back from Shari al-Rashid yesterday? Yeah, a couple of things. That's not the first time that Israel shoots or targets people aimlessly and kills them in many cases, just moving from one place to another, especially moving from the south to the north. As a matter of fact, they breached the temporary ceasefire agreement with Hamas during the temporary ceasefire when people were going back to their homes in the north, and killed several. But a couple of observations. Number one, people are feeling more comfortable going back. Something could be related with the negotiations. Number two, I admire these people. My God, they have I am so admire them. Why? Because they're going to destruction, less aid, potential starvation, just to go back. Imagine what kind of strength these people had. It's amazing, but it's not surprising, really, from Israel. ABCD, can you get a Hamas or PIJ spokesperson on your podcast to answer questions? I'm sure many people have, seeing as your previous had an IOF soldiers. Yeah, that's definitely an option. Because I noticed that there was only one spokesperson, I think it was on Channel 4, who spoke with representative in Iran, and it was a good conversation he had with us. That's definitely an option. AK, thank you so much for your super thanks. You're saying, made your point on a few channels that we should consider Hamas legit, since we know they are the only reason settlers haven't tried taking all of Gaza. Well, firstly, when it comes to Hamas being legit, I'll tell you how I view it personally. I don't need anyone to tell me what's legit and what's not legit. I know they're legit. I'm not waiting for a government that is Zionist or related to Zionist to tell me that's legit and not legit. Secondly, if you look at it from a legit perspective, so let's say Hamas is a prescribed organization in about 34 countries. Those 34 countries are the EU states, hey presto, US, Israel, Canada, UK, I think Japan and Paraguay, one other state maybe. Most of which countries with rich history in colonialism, mass genocide, enslavement, and atrocities all across the world. We know what these countries did. And they're Zionist. That's one first observation. Second observation, 34 countries out of 195? So what's that in terms of percentage? 17% of the world's countries consider Hamas to be a terrorist organization. You're a minority. Most of the world doesn't view them as such. I'm not bound by your view. Obviously, you will follow the rules and laws of your country, but that doesn't mean I need to believe them. Similarly to how I don't need to believe them, and I'm entitled to criticize them and their laws like I do with many other things. Let me give you an example. For example, in Britain, for example, Hamas is a proscribed organization. Their prescription of Hamas in Britain is, firstly, they call them Hamas Azz-ad-Din al-Qassam Brigade. It's like, I'm not sure you have a legal standing when you say that, because they're too different. Or you have Hamas is the political, and al-Qassam is the military. That's number one. Secondly, their reason for prescribing Hamas as a terrorist organization is as follows. Hamas fights to end Israeli occupation and form an Islamic state. So that's why you prescribe them as a terrorist organization. So anyone fighting an occupation is a terrorist organization. Okay. You have a country, and then forming an Islamic state. Again, question marks, because they participate in democracy and they're not imposing anything or anyone. They can said that we're willing to participate, protect the rights of everyone, what have you. Read their charter from 2017. That will debunk all of the lies, by the way, about that they're there to kill all Jewish people or this nonsense. And they distinguish heavily between Judaism and Zionism, and they even oppose Zionism as a violent, colonial, aggressive entity. Okay, so you're saying that. But, okay, so you label Hamas as such because they're fighting occupation and they're looking to form a religious state, an Islamic state in this case. But you're fine with Israel, an occupying, genocidal, violent, racist state, occupying and calling itself a Jewish state, a religious state. Before democratic, by the way, Israel calls itself a Jewish democratic state. Let's not forget that. Jewish first, then democratic. Obviously, I have an argument from very many Jewish people as well, is that you cannot tell me you're Jewish and democratic. It can't happen. You either are, what's it called, democracy or a theocracy. Anyway, they're fine with that, but not fine with that. So the whole notion really is that I should deem something as legit or believe that it's legit or only illegit based on a corrupt and miscalculated government interpretation, despite all of the flaws, is absurd, really. So resisting is legit, occupying is not legit. Easy. Now you have the international court saying they're a genocidal state. The other part of your comment, and they are the only reason settlers haven't taken all of Gaza. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, historically, Israel proved that they only change when there's force being used against them. They're a neo-colonialist, expansionist, violent, supremacist entity. So when they went and occupied Sinai, how did they get out of Sinai? After Egypt started a war with them to take back their lands. They went and occupied South Lebanon, and they created the South Lebanon Army. How did they withdraw from Lebanon? Resistance attacks. How did they withdraw from Gaza? In 2005. Obviously, they had a plan to split Gaza and the West Bank to make it more difficult to achieve Palestinian state. However, a big part was the fact that they had a lot of resistance. So the main thing that is making Israel fail now is the Palestinian resistance, number one. Then you have the people's perseverance, and then you take into consideration all of the other things included, like the resistance allies' actions, the international implications, certain moves that were taken by Egypt, and the dissatisfaction, to say the least, with the US administration. Tam McIntosh, Mahmoud, will Arab nations help in rebuilding Gaza? Yes, in forms of donations. I'm sure lots of Arab money will flood into Gaza for rebuilding purposes. In terms of contracts, you might have some more foreign people helping in terms of, and obviously international aid and stuff. You will have a lot of support and contribution. Hanan Y, thank you for your membership. You said, hi Mahmoud, I'm Hanan, Egyptian living in USA. Thank you for keeping me sane in this insane world. Love you, man. Much love back. Thank you so much for your kind words and your membership. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to have a positive impact on anyone, really. It's a blessing. And thank you so much for your very generous super thanks. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And we'll finish it there. Again, thank you so much, Hanan, for your generous contribution, and everyone who sent supers, and all of you for your comments and your valuable input, and for being with me and for watching and viewing. That supports massively to spread the message further. And we'll end it there. Like I said, I'll most likely post another video soon. I know many people in similar to my time zone will fall asleep now, but we have other viewers in America and other locations, so I'll post another video shortly, most likely. And also I will be hopefully with you tomorrow as well. Same time, most likely 10 o'clock. Again, if you don't see my update, check on my live section or my community tab where I usually post. Sometimes I'll publish the live stream time late. I will just notify you, but the link will be live later on. Again, thank you so much for participating. I enjoyed spending my time with you, and have a lovely week ahead, and I will see you soon in the next video. Take care.